But what of education itself? In Wilson's view, education, quote, is a method of enlightenment concerning your relations to the material universe and to your fellow men, unquote. Although the role of language and communication in human affairs was not well understood in Wilson's time, we may still regard him as an early visionary of a kind. But how shall we adapt his vision to the 21st century? How do we understand today the role that language and communication play in organizing people's relation to the material universe and to each other?
I wanted to say that it's been a subject of study for so many years and all this big work. And of course, I said Hufs. And these are some of the students in Hufs. We have about, Hufs has three major African languages, Hausa, Zulu, and Yoruba. And I know that in every year we have 50 students taking Hausa a course. What we do, we teach them Hausa. We get them to explore and reflect on areas of difference and similarity. And hopefully we want to take them out of this comfort zone to a place where they, off the beaten track, eventually go to Nigeria and pray.
English speakers, they go to the straightforwardly go to agenda in a straight line. Oriental, now we don't use the term Oriental, but he says the Orientals like Chinese and Korean, we have that kind of circle there, and probably it's never going to the topic. And English rhetorical structure is something like a situation, problem, solution, evaluation, and according to Yeonhee Choi, claim, justification, and conclusion. So it's really straightforward. But Korean or Asian rhetorical structure is something like 기승전결, which is very commonly known in Oriental cultures, in all Asian countries.
I find it amazing that almost nothing is being done about this situation. Black parents, educators, ministers of education, black students and school children are generally convinced that it is better to start early with acquiring English because English is regarded a ticket to prosperity, power and status, as English is the language of government, business and technology in South Africa.
Magic becomes a true component of an extremely long tradition of fantasy, fiction having a great history from Homer, Apuleius, the Holy Grail, etc., etc. Magic appears to be therefore a cultural worldview that was constantly evolving over the course of time. The Neo-Platonic synthetic magic of the famous alchemist Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa von Netzheim from 16th century, in a certain iconographical way, led Victor Frankenstein of Mary Shelley 1818 novel to create his archetypal monster.
And so I try to raise some issues in terms of translation, especially poetry translation. There is a kind of some huge cultural discrepancies between the major language, major cultures. You can think about English or and minor literature or minor cultures, Korean or some other. the minority nations, and the inbound and outbound translation is really interesting. You might tend to think that nowadays inbound translation is we do have a large market, but I find that because of the copyright problem, we need to pay a kind of huge the royalty to translate some the works of the foreign authors, and it's hard to translate for example contemporary American writers into Korean.